Now, I think I have a rather sadistic side to me, either that or I'm a glutton for punishment. Because I had Christmas, which trying to come up with a fresh Christmas message is a terrible thing because everybody's already done them. And then I decided what I think I need to speak about is I need to speak about the prodigal son. Well, the only problem with the prodigal son is that there have been more sermons done on the prodigal son than any other piece of scripture, so take that. So I'm prefixing that to tell you that what you're going to hear today you've probably heard before. So don't run out in stark terror, but maybe you will hear it in a different context. It might actually be something fresh. I started getting into this, and then what I discovered was I actually had too much stuff that I needed to speak about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it into two parts. And so we'll speak about the prodigal son today and next week. But today I want to really do an introduction. I want to set the foundation for the prodigal son. I don't have time to read the story, but if you want to, you can go to Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 32, and you can read the whole thing there. In the interest of time, that can be your homework. Done! Next! The prodigal son, the thing about the prodigal son is everybody always wants to talk about the prodigal son with relation to the two protagonists and potentially putting the older brother into it. But everybody wants to speak about the relational aspect, about the father and the son who goes off and the father does his thing and comes back. But I wanted to have a look at the prodigal son from a different perspective. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a look at the prodigal son from the perspective of his inheritance. Because if you have a look at the inheritance and the part that it plays in the story, it's actually more fundamental to the story than perhaps we realized. The story of the prodigal son happens in biblical context. Jesus starts talking to them, first of all, and he starts speaking about two other examples. And he speaks about someone who's lost a sheep and goes off to find a sheep. And someone who's lost a coin and does everything to go and find a coin. And then he goes into the story of the prodigal son. And the story about the prodigal son, what makes it a little different to the other two, is that it does have the relational component to it, where you're talking about something which is in a family context as opposed to something which is purely an object that you hold on to. So the son comes to his father and he says to his father, I want for you to give me my inheritance. He asked for his inheritance. Now, an inheritance is a wonderful thing. An inheritance is kind of like winning the lottery without buying a ticket. Do you know what I mean? Who doesn't love a lot? If anybody ever called you and said, you know what, you've got a long-lost relative that you've never met, and they put you in your will, and actually you've got an inheritance coming to you, everybody just smiles. Nobody gets upset about that. Nobody thinks there's anything bad coming. It's kind of like gifts, birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. Everybody loves something for nothing. The thing about it is this. I think that there is a life lesson in that. Because the strange thing about it is, although we gain an inheritance, we have a responsibility to honor that inheritance. Because the inheritance comes at a price. You see, you may not have paid the price, but somebody else put in the blood, sweat, and tears so that you could reap the benefits of what's given to you. And sometimes what happens to us is that we get into a situation where we're so caught up with what we have that we don't necessarily take the necessary time to respect it, to understand what the purpose of that inheritance is and the role that it could play in not only my life right at the moment, but where it could take me in the future. And so what we do is we end up squandering what has been given to us rather than treating it with honor and respect. There was an incredible price paid for you to receive what Jesus has done for you. He paid with his life. He gave everything. The whole purpose with God is for him to give you a demonstration of his love. It's easy to tell somebody, I love you. It's easy to say, oh, I love you, I love you. Put your money where your mouth is. If you want to say you love somebody, show them by what you do. Where do you demonstrate love? And we talk about a God and a Father who is someone who lives up in heaven and he's distant. He's not. He's actually very much a part of your life. And what he's saying is, because I love you so much, not only have I created opportunity for you to get into a relationship with me, but really what I want to do is I want to create a platform of which you can go and you can experience my love every single day. What do you do because you love your kids? You provide for them. You do everything you can to nurture them, to take care of them, to provide for them, to give them a safe place, to give them a dwelling, to give them an education, to give them a social. You're always investing in your kids. Why? Because you love them. So God said, I love you. But it's not enough for me to just sit and say that I love you. I need to put my money where my mouth is. And because I love you, I'm going to create an opportunity for you to experience my love on an ongoing basis. And when Jesus died, the way that he did that is through the inheritance that he left for you. That's what he did. There is a plan behind the inheritance. Jeremiah speaks about the fact that God has got a plan for your life. He has a plan to prosper you and to give you hope and to give you a future, paraphrased version. That's what he's got. What is the whole purpose of giving you prosperity? You see, we always look at things in a natural context, and our default is always to sit and think, okay, well, God's going to give me stuff. God's going to give me a check. God's going to give me money. You know, money is a good thing, and money is a wonderful thing, and if you have stuff, it's a really good thing because it puts you in a position where you can deal with a lot of stuff that you're not going to be able to deal with if you don't have that. But there are some challenges in life that no matter how much money you've got, it's not going to do anything for you. So God says, nah, money's not the best idea. Money's not the best. Let's do something better than that. And what he decides to do is he decides to give you an inheritance that is something spiritual in nature. And so what he decides to give you is he decides to give you authority, and he decides to give you power, and he decides to give you an enabling, and he decides to give you everything that pertains to life and godliness. That is the promise. Because he says, if I can give you that, then everything that you walk through in life, everything that you experience, everything that comes against you, I've given you the equipping and I've given you the enabling for you to be able to deal with that and for you to be able to overcome it. That's the point of it. You're never going to be able to do that if you have a limited inheritance. He gives you an unlimited inheritance. The point of your inheritance is to enable you, to give you the undergirding, so that when you face life's challenges, you have a look at them and you sit and say, in my own ability, in my own strength, in my own knowledge, I may not be at a place where I'm able to do that. But do you know what? This isn't about me. This is about my inheritance. And when I have a look at my inheritance, I suddenly sit and say, oh, the challenge better be careful. It's all about my inheritance. It's all about my inheritance. There are some people who are very fortunate because they have rare and unusual gifting. And they're able to do things that are just like fabulous. You know, you have people that are gifted intellectually. They're just so smart, and they graduate beyond the Mensa Society. And you have people who are talented artists, and you have people who are fabulous singers, and you have all kinds of people, and they stand out from the norm. But for the average person like us, we just become part of the norm. And after a while, you sit and say, is there really any difference between me and everybody else? You know, other people are just kind of, they got great stuff. What is it about me that makes me unusual? What is it about me that makes me special? And we have a tendency to look at ourselves and we say, well, I don't have any special gifting. And there's nothing about me that makes me unique and stand out. And there's nothing to me that really gives me anything that makes me a special person in the context of everybody else. Part of God's inheritance and part of the design behind God's inheritance is to make a somebody out of a nobody. You see, God never intended for you to ever look at yourself in the context of your own limitations. God's point and what he's always designed for you to do is for you to take who you are and put yourself in the wrapping of your inheritance, and then to have a look at who you are. Because suddenly you find somebody who's more than a conqueror. I was never that before then. God's inheritance and what he designs for us to do is to make us somebody out of people who feel as though they're a nobody. And as you grow up through life, and as you mature through life, one thing that you're going to discover about life is going to stretch you. And life is going to demand that you enlarge your capacity for living and for dealing with situations and circumstances. It's something that's going to happen to you, whether you want to deal with it or not. It's immaterial. It's life. That's what's going to happen. And when you're at college, you sit there And we have a comfortable life when we're at college because we kind of get to go to bed whenever we want in the early mornings, and we wake up whenever we want, usually about lunchtime, often with a heavy head. And we get to come and go as we want, and we kind of supposed to be at classes, which we should be at, but we're not always at. And we're very big on our social life, and we live a life that is comfortable, it's good, and it's rooted in fun. We don't always appreciate the different aspects and the different times we have in life until it's after the fact. Have you ever realized that? It's like your childhood. Your childhood is young and it's carefree and it's easy and there are no pressures. You never worry about things. It's so fabulous. It's only once you get out of your childhood that you really begin to have an appreciation for what it is to be a child. The thing about it is you talk to people who are in childhood and they sit and they dismiss it so casually. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because they don't have that appreciation. But that's not my part of my point anyway. The point that I'm making is this. When you're at college and when you're at university, the whole point of it is to gear you up and to equip you for life. That's what they're there to do. And they sit and they say to you, come on, let's go, let's get you into classes and let's get you into this course and that course and we'll get you graduated. And after 4 years, they shake your hand and they thank you for coming and they thank you for paying your tuition. And then they say, on you go, enjoy life. If there's one thing that life is going to do to you, it is going to make demands on you. Because when you get out of college, suddenly it says, where are you going to stay? Who's paying for your fuel? Who's paying for your car insurance? Who's paying for your food? Who's paying for your taxes? Have you got a job? It makes demands on you. Life makes demands on you. And either you make a decision to step up to the plate and to face those decisions head on, or you don't. The degree to which you're able to embrace the demands that are placed on you in life is the degree to which you're going to be successful in life, or quasi-successful, or a failure. The demands don't go away because you don't like them. The demands don't go away because you don't think it's fair. The demands don't go away because you think, well, it shouldn't be that way. The way that you decide to respond to the demand affects you, not the demand. The thing about life is this. We are geared up, and as natural human beings, we have the capacity and the ability to adjust. And we have the ability to embrace life, and we have the ability to grow with it. We're just at varying degrees. But there are aspects to life, and there are challenges in life, and there are realities in life that are going to come against you, that are going to be thrown against you, and they're going to come up with a set of demands that you are not going to be equipped to handle. There are times where you may have relational pressures, where you may have financial pressures, where you may have sickness, where you may have a whole bunch of stuff that comes and looks in your face and says, now what are you going to do? That's the point of an inheritance. You see, in your own ability and in your own strength and the things that you have available to you, the things that you have accessible to you, there's nothing you can do to use any of that stuff to deal with some of what comes against you. But you can in your inheritance. You see, your inheritance gives you the enabling to be able to do that. Your inheritance is what gives you the empowering to be able to deal with some of the demands of life that come against you. All the demands, actually. So you find your job and you find your place and you're kind of getting settled and you decide that bachelorhood's not such a bad thing. You actually quite like it. And you're getting settled in your job and actually it's quite nice. You've got a nice group of friends, and so the boys go out every Thursday evening and you go out for drinks, and then Saturday morning we golf. Actually, Saturday we golf because we start off in the morning, but it kind of goes on most of the day. And then Sundays we have the boys' nights for football. And the nice thing about Sunday evening football is that Sunday evening football goes into Monday night football. So then the boys have to get together again for that once. I've got my bachelor life all sorted out, and I've got my bachelor life together, and I love my bachelor life, and it's so nice and cozy. And I'm enjoying it so much. And even Betty Sue loves my bachelor life. Well, she loves me so much. But then Betty Sue says one day, I think we really should get married. And I thought that was a good idea. So then Betty, Sue, and I decided that we're going to tie the knot. So we went out and we got married. And all of a sudden, I found that there were so many challenges that suddenly confronted me. All of a sudden, I found that I couldn't live my bachelor life anymore and try to deal with the marriage issues over here. All of a sudden, I discovered that I had to make a life shift in myself. Because if I continued to live in my old bachelor ways, I couldn't address the needs and the responsibilities that go in my marriage. Part of the challenge that confronts so many people is we don't want to have an identity change. We want to live in our old identity, but we want the benefits of something new. I'm not watching who's nudging any, I'm not saying anything. But the pressure and the requirement placed on you is to change who you are as a person and to fundamentally make a shift and sit and say, I am no longer going to be the person who has an identity, who has a paradigm rooted in being a bachelor. I have to decide to turn around and make a step and move into what it means to be a husband. There is a role shift that takes place. Part of our problem as Christians, I'll tell you about that, but we have a role shift, we have an identity shift that takes place. When an identity shift takes place, everything changes within me. Because all of a sudden, my perspective on life changes and I don't view life as a bachelor anymore. Suddenly I view life as a husband. Now I look at things and I say, you know what? In order for me to become a good husband, I'm going to have to let some stuff go. I'm going to get rid of that stuff. Because we don't want that stuff anymore because that's not going to make me a good husband. And if I'm going to be a good husband, I'm going to actually have to embrace some stuff that I've never felt comfortable embracing before. And I'm going to have to step into some growth and some development that I may not have ever done before. Because if I make that a part of my identity, I become a better husband. And because I have a husband perspective on things, I have the ability to be able to recognize those environmental contributions that are going to make my marriage better. So I encourage them in, or I plant the seed so that it grows and so that it develops. But I also protect that area of my life. And so there's certain things that I sit and say, you know what? I'm not going down that road because as a good husband, that's not going to do anything for my marriage. That's going to be a problem for my marriage and it's going to bring conflict and issues into my marriage. So what do? I change all of that. My identity has shifted and suddenly I'm living as a husband. Our identity has to shift when we embrace our inheritance. You see, the problem with it is God has a design for your life. God has a design to make you a king. Romans 5:17 says, I will reign in life through Christ Jesus. The word reign is the same word that is used to describe a king, someone who rules and reigns in life. That is God's design for you. That is the big objective. That's the plan. The big idea is, I want to make you a king. The problem with it is this. We have an old identity that we're still living in, but we love the title of king. So we try to fiddle with the whole title of king over here, but live the way that I am. I'm interested in being a king, but I'm not committed. My identity has to shift, and that's my responsibility. My responsibility is to sit and say, you know what, I'm prepared to take a move from where I am, and I'm no longer going to be someone who knows about an inheritance, who knows about a title that I have. It's somebody who sits and says, you know what, no, I'm going to be a new creation in Christ, and I'm going to step into what that means. And all of a sudden I stand there, and what happens? My perspective on life shifts. Not because I'm dabbling with it, because it becomes a part of my identity. And suddenly I look at life in a different way. And suddenly I recognize the fact that some things need to get out of the way. And some things need to be planted in there. And I begin to recognize that, you know what? Not only can I see and be able to discern what things need to be brought in and what needs to get out, I suddenly recognize that because of my position and because of where I am, I have the authority to do it. That's part of the problem. Beforehand, when you're dabbling with it, you know what needs to happen. You can see what needs to happen. You've heard about what needs to happen. You love the idea of what needs to happen, but you don't have the enabling to make it happen because it's not part of your identity. The invitation is to step into a new identity in Him. We talk so much about the idea of destiny. Destiny. What is destiny? My destiny is to find a place where I'm happy. My destiny is to be a person who achieves and I'm successful. My destiny is to be a person who gets to the top of the corporate ladder. My destiny is to be a person who is financially successful. My destiny is to be a person who has power and influence. What is your destiny? Your destiny has nothing to do with any of those things. Your destiny is firmly rooted in your inheritance. You see, your inheritance carries with it your identity, your true identity. Your destiny is to step into your true identity, to discover the full realm of what that is, and to be able to live out of it fully. That's your destiny. We get confused between root and fruit. We love when we step into that. The result of it is that our lives happen and things begin to flourish. And so we quickly get deterred and we start running off in directions and we go, wow, I love the fact that I can go ski boarding on the weekend. And, I love the fact that, I've got this promotion at work and this opens up doors for me to go there. And God's saying, well, I'm glad all those things are happening. It's not about that. Your destiny is about you discovering who you truly are and being able to live out of that and give full expression to it. That's your destiny. Your destiny is spiritual in nature. Your destiny is not natural. That's an expression of everything that comes out of your true destiny. God's design is for you to be a king. God's design is for you to reign and rule. God's design is for you to be an overcomer. How do you rule? You rule by overcoming. In the Garden of Eden, the Father created Adam and Eve, and He said to them that He uses the same word as reign, and He says to them, I want you to reign in life. That's what He said to them. And they took that and they reigned. And through a whole series of events, what ended up happening? They lost the ability to reign, and they lost it. And what happens? When you no longer reign, something else reigns over you. Whatever you lose it to reigns over you. Jesus came back, and as part of your inheritance, He said, okay, your identity is your king, is to become king. Your identity is once again to reign. When you face life's challenges and you face the things that come against you, I'm not here to in any way dismiss them or belittle them. They're not. There are things of consequence that come against people on a regular basis. But what I am saying to you is this. What they're after is the ability to reign in your life. And as Adam and Eve, when you look at the challenges that come before you, you make a decision about what you want to do at that point. Do you want to surrender the ability to reign and let that situation reign over you? Or are you going to step out in your identity and hold on to that and take authority over the situation and change the situation, the place that you find yourself? We are to rule and reign. You reign when you overcome. That's the whole point. You can't reign if you're not overcoming stuff. Now I need you to hold on to all of this stuff because this is the foundation for the prodigal son. I know you didn't think so, but it is. Because you see, I think that the whole concept of identity is what's so important in the prodigal son. Inheritance is what's so important in the prodigal son. So you're going to have to remember all of this stuff. So when we finish it next week, then you'll actually have a foundation that we'll be able to operate on. And I'll know if I've done a good job because I'll see you. Because if I don't see you, I'll know. You were thinking, oh, what drivel, honestly. Who else have you got? Won't you please stand? Your identity is key to your life. You get one shot at it. You get one shot at life. That's it. How you decide to live it is up to you.